The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this January 16th. I guess it's night of January the 16th. The title of a famous play by Ayn Rand you should all have read or watched on stage. A fantastic drama and a lot of fun to watch on stage. All right. Yeah, it looks like Stephen is snowed in Massachusetts. I'm sure a lot of you are either snowed in or just cold in, just frozen in, wherever you are. Not here in Puerto Rico, where it's, 80 degrees outside right now. 78 degrees outside. All right. I was supposed to do a news show today. I know I was. I unfortunately had to take my wife to do a medical procedure. I thought it would take 2-3 hours. It basically took the whole day. So it not only made it impossible to do the news show, but also it meant that today's evening show, which I meant to do an hour earlier, is an hour later. But it is what it is. We keep on rolling, right? All right. So Trump yesterday, no, not yesterday, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, Trump basically, won in a landslide in Iowa. I mean, lots of caveats to that. Turnout was very, very low. Weather was very, very bad. There's a lot you can say about it to make it sound less bad. But the reality is that Trump won over 50% of caucus scores, the largest victory ever in Republican history. While Nikki Haley and DeSantis, Nikki Haley and DeSantis did mildly better than the polls. They did horribly. They did horribly ultimately. Even combined, if you combine both of them, they, what did they get? Less than, I think, 40%, something like that. So, and this is Iowa. This is where DeSantis had a huge ground game, what they call a large organizational setup on the ground. DeSantis had the endorsement of both the governor of Iowa and of the leading evangelical in the state, and yet an overwhelming number of evangelicals voted for Trump. So the endorsement of the evangelical leadership made no difference. This is a state that in 2016 did not vote for Trump in the caucus. The caucus then went for Ted Cruz, who everybody expected would be the evangelical candidate and would basically win throughout the country. The evangelical vote that proved not to be the case after losing Iowa. Trump basically won everything else and suddenly won by big margins the evangelical vote, forcing Cruz ultimately to withdraw from the race. Trump goes into New Hampshire strong. New Hampshire might not vote for Trump. It might go for Haley, although I think it's going to be close, and it's likely that Trump will actually squeeze it out and win even in New Hampshire. He then goes to South Carolina, which is Nikki Haley was governor of South Carolina, and I think he wins in South Carolina by a big margin. He probably goes to Florida and wins by a big margin. He wins by big margins in Super Tuesday. I just don't see where Trump is within the Republican Party, how he can be stopped. I just don't believe he will be. I don't believe he can be. Trump will be. I think there's very little chance that this will not happen. I mean, there's always a probability something happens. But it really does appear that Trump will be the Republican nominee in 2024, going into the elections in November. And I think, sadly, it's likely that Biden will be the nominee on the Democratic side, and we'll have a repeat of 2016. And I think, to a large extent, we'll have a repeat of 2016. I think I'd be surprised if Biden, in spite of how poorly he does in the polls right now, in spite of the fact that so many people despise him and so many people hate him and so many people dislike him, I think Biden wins it. I think the reality is that people dislike Trump even more. The enthusiasm this time for Trump is far less than it was in 2020. And in 2020, he lost to Biden, and I think there's a lot less enthusiasm for Trump today than there was back then. But Trump will be the nominee, and with a really good chance, to win the presidency. He could be the president for 4 more years, for 4 years post 2024. We can talk, and we will talk, I'm sure, in the months, years to come, about what that means to the country and what that could mean to the country. I think it just means the continued decline and deterioration and of the country in pretty much every dimension one can imagine. I think that also happens as Biden wins, so it's not that big of a difference, although the nature of the decline, I think, shifts between whether it is Trump or whether it is Biden. It doesn't matter in a sense, because what Trump's candidacy, what's Trump winning in 2016 and his success in 2020, even though he lost to Biden, he got a hell of a lot of votes, and his popularity in 2024, all should worry people. Whether Trump wins or doesn't win is not really the question we should be asking ourselves. The real question we should be asking ourselves is, how can it be that Trump is on the ballot? How can it be that Trump is the best option that America has? And of course, the same is true of Biden. But Biden is the incumbent. It's very difficult to get rid of an incumbent if he decides to run. One can understand the Democrats for sticking with an incumbent. But how can it be that the Republican Party, as bad as it has always been, awful, horrible, that it has always been, or at least has been for a long, long, long time, how can it be that this same party, this party that was bad, has gone from bad to absolutely despicable? And of course, what does this say about the Republican Party? How does one explain the phenomena? And what does it say more broadly about America? What is it about America that attracts us to Donald Trump? What is it about America, and particularly the so-called right on America, that thinks that Donald Trump is the answer, and that thinks that Donald Trump is the best alternative, given a wide array of other choices that exists out there? What is it that has shifted America so dramatically? And whatever you think of Mitt Romney, and I don't particularly like Mitt Romney, but Mitt Romney and Trump are very, very different people. How do we get from Mitt Romney to a Donald Trump, or for that matter, Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump, McCain, Bush, all people I don't like, Dole, Reagan I kind of like, but everybody else I don't like. How did we get from any of those people to Donald Trump? And look, you all know, I think those of you who've been listening to my show for a long time, you know how low, how badly I think of Donald Trump. I think the guy, has one of the lowest characters in terms of just a character, just in terms of his attitude, his behavior, the way he talks, his values or lack of them. I can't think of a presidential candidate, never mind president, who's had a lower character. In that sense, he's much worse than Bill Clinton. He's got the same disregard for women, but with a personality that is just ugly in every single dimension. A man who stands for really nothing. We'll talk about what he stands for, but he stands for really nothing in terms of positive ideas. He doesn't stand for a particular foreign policy, except not getting involved in disputes that he thinks we should not, and maybe we should, and maybe we should not. Maybe sometimes he'll change his mind. He stands for no specific foreign policy. He has no foreign policy views. He'll cut a deal with the brutal dictator of North Korea. He never really did, but he tried, and he groveled, and he kissed the guy's boots, but he never actually did. He'll cut a deal with Putin. He'll probably cut a deal with Hamas. He's a deal maker. He'll cut a deal. That's his foreign policy. No principle, no ideas, no conception of American interests other than I'll cut a deal. But I have a strong sense. Trump just doesn't have a sense of America. He knows what Trumps want. He knows what his voters want. He's very good at that. That's his great genius. But he has no conception of America, what it is, what it stands for, what it represents, what it has been, what it could be, what its founding documents say it is. He is the ultimate pragmatist. Cut a deal. Whatever the problem is, the solution is cut a deal. He has no principles. If it works, it's okay with him. With Donald Trump, does anybody doubt that Donald Trump would lie, steal, cheat, do whatever to get his way? I don't think so. I don't think many people doubt that fact. And what was his record? It was a mishmash of president. Some good things, some terrible things, some bad things. I know you all remember, because those of you inclined to Trump remember only the good things, and you could probably give me a whole list of all the wonderful things that he did. And forget all the long list of the things that he did that were horrible, just the policies that he engaged in that were horrible. Foreign policy was a disaster. Domestic policy was a disaster. And, you know, the economy, I mean, it's funny to me, the economy. The whole story about the economy is truly funny. I don't have any other response to it because it's so ludicrous. It's funny. There are people who really believe the economy was the greatest economy we've ever had. And by every objective measure, the economy is just as good under Biden. And it's not good under Biden. And it wasn't that good under Trump. It just wasn't. Now, in terms of GDP growth, you know, the only people who really benefited under Trump were, you know, wages went up under Trump. Particularly working class wages went up under Trump quite a bit. And that's primarily not because, you know, he understood what he did, but primarily because of the corporate tax rate cut. The fact is, when he cut corporate taxes, I said this at the time, the beneficiaries are workers and consumers. So some wages went up in real terms. Again, not clear, other than the corporate tax cut, that it did anything. Unemployment wasn't any better than it is today. Tariffs that clearly, unequivocally destroyed jobs, weakened American businesses, were instituted. Massive subsidies to farmers were adopted. It's no surprise, it shouldn't be a surprise that Iowa went so strong for Trump. Ultimately, the farmers in Iowa are beneficiaries of massive subsidies that Trump provided them. And, to a large extent, one could argue that a lot of what was going on in Trump was a consequence of low interest rates, engineered by the Federal Reserve, that Trump supported, not just supported, kind of beat the Fed down a little bit in 2018 when they threatened to raise interest rates. Arguably, those low interest rates caused the kind of distortions that we saw later on that ultimately resulted in inflation. Nippon Steel, buying U.S. steel, is big reason for that is tariffs. Trump's tariffs, steel tariffs. So it wasn't a superstar economy. Bill Clinton had a superstar economy. Ronald Reagan had a superstar economy. Trump, 2% growth. And of course, a president who from beginning to end, completely and utterly mismanaged COVID. I mean, in ways that if Ayn Rand had written it into a character in Atlas Shrugged, you would have said nobody could be that evasive, stupid, ridiculous. Nobody. From sticking his head in the sand and pretending it wasn't happening, to promising us it would go away by itself, to then panically on March 13th, Friday, March 13th, declaring, in a sense, a state of emergency, encouraging states to lock down, encouraging schools to close, then pushing, bizarre medicines, attacking Georgia for opening up too soon. Trump wasn't listening to Fauci. Fauci didn't tell him to support hydrochlorine. Fauci didn't tell him to pour, disinfectant down your throat. Fauci, one of the bureaucrats that he listened to. But this is Donald Trump, president. His watch, his call. Why was Fauci even there? Because the CDC screwed up. CDC screwed up on whose watch? Trump's watch. When a screw up this large happens in a business, the CEO is gone. Ancient. He resigns. He doesn't even wait to be fired. I've been calling for Netanyahu's resignation post October 7th. Certainly, Trump should never be president again after not just one, but a long series of complete and utter screw-ups during COVID. But you guys, in spite of the fact that there are alternatives, you guys want to give him a second chance. Want to give it at him again. Government spending went through the roof, did nothing to slow it down. Obamacare was never repealed. No option was ever proposed. Not a single deregulatory bill went to Congress. The budgets Trump sent to Congress were always expansionary and growing. Entitlement reform was completely shelved. And now the United States budget is even more in the hole. Now the economy is even more problematic. And you want to give this guy another chance. You want to give this idiot another chance, this incompetent idiot another chance. You know, the probably the best performing country during COVID was Taiwan, and a big part of that was the result of the fact that the vice president of Taiwan took it upon himself. He's both an epidemiologist, but took him upon himself to organize the response of the Taiwanese. They responded months before Trump. They responded aggressively, quickly, and didn't shut down their economy even once. So it was possible. But no, and this is the phenomena that we're going to talk about. The facts don't matter. You know, we could have been in a depression. We could have, you know, hundreds of thousands of people did die unnecessarily because of Trump, because of COVID. Our liberties were violated because of Trump and COVID. Our economy is in worse shape because of Trump. His record is at best mediocre and objectively terrible. And of course, that doesn't even take into account his authoritarian tendencies, his vulgar speech, his vulgarity, his ugliness in terms of the way he expresses himself, his flirtation with and a winking relationship with white nationalists and racists. This is the guy you want. This is the guy you want to be president, your president, president of the United States. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. This is the thing. It doesn't matter. He could kill somebody, murder somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and wouldn't matter. He's going to be, I think, convicted of crimes. It doesn't matter. He has been civilly convicted of, basically sexual assault. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. He can talk about groping women. He can talk about mass murder. He can talk about whatever he wants to talk about. It doesn't matter. He will get many of your votes. And you will make excuses. Oh, we didn't know how COVID was. Oh, we didn't know this. Oh, we didn't do that. Oh, but he deregulated. Oh, but he was good on energy. Oh, what about Tel Aviv? What about this? What about that? Excuses, excuses, excuses. There's simply no justifying Trump other than Biden. Biden is an excuse to vote for Trump, okay? Biden's on the ballot right now. Haley and DeSantis, and well, they're the only ones left on the ballot right now. They're the ones who could be a replacement for Trump, but it doesn't matter. It's not about any of that. It's about what Trump essentially is. And what Trump essentially is what people are looking for and they want. And they're voting for Trump. They're not voting against Biden. They're voting for Trump. And those on the chat here apologizing for Trump and saying, oh, but I support somebody else. They love Trump. They want Trump. They adore Trump. Trump fills a need that they have. Be right back. What Trump does is project back to people their anger. What Trump does is project back to people their fear. What Trump does is project back to people their hatred. And he knows it. And he plays on it. And he does it amazingly well. Amazingly well. People are afraid. Now, partially they're afraid because they've been told they should be afraid, but partially they're afraid because they're entering a world that they do not recognize, that they do not know, that they're afraid of how to deal with. Yeah, there it is, guys. When you don't have an argument, call somebody TDS. There you go. It's the Trump brain dead syndrome, which so many people out there have. But that's exactly what I'm describing. These are people afraid of the modern world. They're afraid of competition. They're afraid of globalization. They're afraid of global trade. They're afraid of people who look differently than them, who have different cultures than them, who might be out competing them in some way. These are people who might be losing their jobs or afraid to be losing their jobs. These are mostly people who are old. You know what Trump's demographic is? What is Trump's demographic? Who votes for Trump overwhelmingly? He wins, hand down, by overwhelming majorities. He wins the 65 and older vote. What's the other demographic that he wins overwhelmingly? You know who won? You know who won the youth vote, young people vote in Iowa? DeSantis. DeSantis. You might have thought Vivek or something, but DeSantis won it. Old people vote for Trump. Old people vote for Trump because they're afraid. They're afraid of a changing world. They cannot change. They're too old to change. They're nostalgic for another America, good or bad. It's just nostalgia. The 50s were not that great. Not for everybody. They're also afraid because the reality is that many 65-year-olds live off of Social Security and Medicare. And they're afraid that those will be touched, reformed, changed. They're afraid because they've lived their lives pretty much the same way for most of their lives. And they know that future generations are going to have to change, that the world is changing around them. They're afraid of those immigrants coming across the border. So it's old people. What's the other demographic that Trump dominates? It's non-college educated adults. Among Republicans, college-educated adults, in Iowa at least, a majority of them voted for Nikki Haley. And if you add Nikki Haley and DeSantis' vote together, they were a majority of college-educated, overwhelming majority of college-educated Republicans voted against Trump. So, not college-educated, working class, and old. Like the way things have always been, don't want change, scared. I mean, robots are going to replace workers. Some Republican free marketers want to, privatize Social Security. I remember when I used to speak at the Tea Party, which was also overwhelmingly old. I used to tell them how evil it was that they were taking the whole Medicare system was basically making them parasitic on their grandchildren. That for every dollar they put into the system, they would take out $4. And who would have to make up those $4? Their grandkids. Higher taxes, fewer opportunities, worst economy. That completely created cognitive dissonance in their minds. They couldn't hold that. That scared them because they don't want me taking away their Medicare. The world is changing, but the change that they object to is not bad change. Globalization, not bad. Robots, not bad. Technology, not bad. Immigration, not bad. But if you're, Ayn Rand wrote this essay about the divine right of stagnation. If you believe that stagnation is ideal, if you want things to be the way that they used to be, if you object to progress, to change, to growth, to prosperity, really, then Trump comes around and tells you, you're right. Change is bad. Let's go backwards. Let's stop this globalization, which has improved American life dramatically. Let's stop immigration, which has improved American life dramatically. Let's stop technology. Let's stop AI. I wouldn't be surprised if a Trump presidency, a next Trump presidency, will see a dramatic increase in regulation of technology, particularly artificial intelligence. Trump told him, I won't let anybody touch your Social Security. I won't let anybody touch your Medicare. And I will build a wall so not a single one of those horrible people who don't look like you crosses the border. I will stop it. And Americans, and he did this great. In 2016, he said there was carnage in the streets of America. It was one of the least violent years in all of American history, literally. In terms of violent crime, 2015, the year he was talking about, well, no, it would be 2016. He was talking about this in 2017, January 2017, was one of the most peaceful, least violent years in all of American history. Carnage in the streets of America. American industry is rotting. American economy is tanking. Our way of life is threatened. It's destroyed. And the enemy is the enemy you guys all know. It's those Chinese. It's those Mexicans. It's the other. It's the elites. It's the left. And what are we going to do about it? I don't need to give you a plan, because all you have to do is trust me. America is a place, shockingly, of people who are afraid, people who are scared, people who have no confidence, people who don't want to think for themselves, who don't want to consider solutions, who don't want to conceive of something new. This is not an America of a revolution. This is not an America of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. This is not an America of reform, of change, of shrinking government, of cutting the bureaucracy, not just the bureaucracy, cutting government spending dramatically. This is an America of stagnation. This is an America of fear. And this is an America of, we don't want to think about it, just tell us what to do. We don't want to think about it, just do what's necessary. We don't want to think about it, just defeat our enemies. Just shut them down. Just close them off. That's what drives a majority of Trump voters. Not every one of them, sure. All kinds of motivations to vote for Trump, particularly in the general election, but in the primaries, there is no excuse. No excuse. Any one of the other candidates could beat the Democrats better, more thoroughly than Trump can. Trump might be the only Republican who could lose to Biden. Biden is so weak, Nikki Haley would run away with it. I even think DeSantis would run away with it, as unlikable as DeSantis is. I think he'd still he'd thrash Biden. Literally the only Republican in the field who could lose to Biden, and all the polls are showing this, is Trump. So it's not about beating Biden. It has nothing to do with beating Biden. That's just an excuse Trumpists make. It is about, as I said, it's about fear. It's about fear. And when fear dominates, people latch on to a candidate who might be vulgar, might not have any ideas, might just yell and scream, but that's exactly what they want. They want somebody who can tell them they're right. They want somebody who can tell them the other is bad. They want somebody who can yell and scream and be as nasty as the opposition is. But it's fear and anger. Fear and anger is what drives Trump voters. Fear and anger is what Trump projects. Just follow his tweets. Fear and anger, what they like about Trump is he expresses what they are feeling. He expresses what they think. Think is too strong of a word. What they feel. He expresses what they feel. And that's the attraction, and it's a magical attraction because it is a cult-like attraction. I mean, literally, he is like a cult leader. The people surrounding Trump, the people who adore Trump, the people who go to Trump rallies are not Americans in the independent thinker, frontiersman, pioneer sense. The people who go to Trump rallies are unthinking, fearful, angry, and ready to be led. Ready to be led. Donald Trump doesn't propose any ideas. He doesn't propose any strategy. He doesn't propose any programs. Nothing really. What's the program? He's just gathering sheep. Right? He's just gathering sheep. So, yeah, I mean, Trump is that bad and much worse. And at the end of the day, I mean, literally, at the end of the day, if you vote for Trump in a primary, again, I'm not comparing it to Biden. If you vote for Trump in a primary, you are voting for the end of America as we know it. You are voting for, for fear and anger. And as a consequence, you're voting for authoritarianism, you're voting for stagnation, you're voting for, going backwards. Going backwards. And I think that's what a vote in Iowa for Trump was. That's what a vote in New Hampshire is going to be for Trump will be. It's not a forward-looking. It's not a. I mean, what are we about? Step aside a second and say, what are we about? What would be our ideal candidate? Who would we want to vote for? What do we believe in? Oh, I can tell you what I believe in. I don't know what you guys believe in. I mean, I believe in freedom and liberty. I believe people should be free. Free to say what they want, free to act the way they want. Free, left alone. I don't believe the government should intervene in what people think, in what people say, in how people act. I believe in a total respect, total separation from state and ideas, from state and journalism. Trump constantly threatened social media and mainstream media constantly throughout his presidency that if they didn't fall in line, he would find ways to shut them down. Or if the Washington Post didn't fall in line, he'd go after Amazon for antitrust, which of course the government has since then. So not an advocate of free speech, not an advocate of liberty, not really an advocate of freedom. I mean, if I were looking for a candidate, I would look for a candidate who was adamant about our economic liberties. This should be easy. Who was promoting the reform of Social Security and Medicare and promoting cutting government spending, being the first president since, God, Bill Clinton. Maybe to run a budget surplus instead of a deficit. Can you imagine that? President actually advocating for cutting spending, getting us to surplus, and starting to pay off our debt. A president who wanted to get out of the way of Americans doing business with whoever they wanted. So a president who actually lowered tariffs, reduced them, eliminated them in many cases. A president who wanted to embrace the idea of trade as win-win, not lose-lose, as Donald Trump constantly told us and taught us and preached to us and explained to us and acted on, but win-win. And therefore embrace trade across the world with anybody except our enemies. Imagine a president who thought businesses should make decisions based on their own standards. They shouldn't be subsidized, as Trump did, subsidized, and Biden, of course, did. Shouldn't be told what to do, shouldn't be coerced, but should be left alone to do business. Imagine a president who is not just going to reduce regulations a little bit, but actually eliminate regulatory agencies. Pass bills that just eliminated them, or at the very least, significantly reduced their mandates. Not just relying on bureaucrats to do a little bit less of, and when the bureaucrat is replaced, they do it more again, but actually bills, legislation that actually rips apart these federal regulatory agencies and does away with it. Now, it could be that the Supreme Court is going to help us here if they do away with Chevron in the next few months. We'll talk about that another show. Imagine a president who had an actual agenda, program of liberty, of freedom, of market reforms. And let me ask you, would Trump voters vote for that person? No. They wouldn't. Trump voters would not vote for them. Indeed, a person like that, a person who has committed themselves to cutting government spending, to reducing government regulation in significant ways, to increasing trade, to increasing housing so that you could get lower cost of living. A person like that could not win. Somebody who had a strategy around foreign policy, a strategy about making America first, could not win. Certainly would not get the Trump voters. The Trump voters are anti-freedom. They're anti-liberty. Again, a majority. They're not voting because they want less government. They're voting because they want more government. Just their kind of government, not the other kinds of government. And they don't even know much about government. They're voting because Trump promised them that he would alleviate their fear and anger. Trump promised them that somehow things would get better. That's what they're voting for. They're voting for what Trump promised. Not for any particular program, not for any particular set of beliefs, not for liberty, freedom, not for any principles, because nobody's articulating principles, certainly not Trump. Trump's articulating anti-principles. Trump is the ultimate pragmatist who believes in nothing. And the people who vote for him believe in nothing. They're driven by fear and anger and a desire to stagnate. It's not quite nihilism, but it's close. And of course, I think Trump is nihilistic, and I think many of his more rabid supporters, particularly the younger rabid supporters, are nihilists. They're the ones who want Trump, not because they think he's any good, but because they love the fact that Trump smashes things. Trump breaks things. Trump destroys things. And there's a real nihilistic streak on the right that supports Trump for all those reasons. People ask me, who would I vote for in the primaries? Anybody but Trump. I throw a dart, it doesn't really matter. But at this point, I think the only person who has a legit chance to defeat Trump is Haley. In spite of many misgivings that I have about her, I would vote for her. Certainly, her foreign policy, I think, is the best of all these candidates. But she's the only one talking about capitalism. She's the only one talking about cutting government spending. So, yeah, I mean, I would vote for Haley. I don't love Haley, and she said some really stupid things that I've criticized on the show. But I'll take her over Trump in a heartbeat. But for that matter, I'd take DeSantis over Trump. It's amazing to me how the people in the chat are reflections of our culture so beautifully, right? They have their talking points, right? They've got it from right-wing media. There's almost like a tweet that goes out every day. Here are the talking points for today. And they have the talking points, and they just repeat them. Like, you can't criticize Trump as significantly as I have for the last 9 years without having TDS, right? Nikki Haley is Clinton of the right, or Hillary of the right. There were others, a bunch of things that they say. Everything they say, basically, is just a talking point they got from a Trump, a tweet, a Trump troll, a Trump whatever, a Trump fax. It used to be faxes. Rush Limbaugh used to get the fax from the Republican National Committee and structure shows around that. And they get that. Tell what their claimed, maybe sometimes belief in capitalism. It doesn't matter. Capitalism. Capitalism can't win. So we can't go with capitalism. You have to abandon capitalism in order to win. And when you win, we still won't get capitalism, but at least we'll win. Who is we? I don't know. Tell what their belief in freedom or liberty. It doesn't matter. We have to win. That's all that matters. We have to win. So to hell with freedom, to hell with liberty, to hell with capitalism, to hell with free speech. As long as we win, everything's okay. And if you argue against us in any kind of way, I've got a talking point that I received from the Republican Trump election PAC, whatever. It's stunning because they have all the phrases. It's the same phrases I see over and over again from Trumpists everywhere. They all use exactly the same language. Exactly the same language. And yes, you can accuse me of being a mouthpiece for the New York Times. You know how far that'll get you. You can accuse me of just being a leftist in disguise, a leftist who advocates for capitalism, a leftist who advocates for destroying the Iranian regime, a leftist who advocates for complete separation of state from economics, from state and social media, from state and media generally. I'm just a leftist. I just take talking points from the left. That's me. Yep. You'll get a long way with those arguments, guys. But that's okay. Today's show is geared towards losing subscribers because that's what's going to happen from today. All right. Let's see. I will remind you all that this show is supported. We will do more shows on Trump because there's a lot more to go in depth here. And as he says things and as he does things, there'll be more to say about him. And then, particularly in the days and weeks to come, because once he becomes the nominee, it'll be boring because then it's Trump or Biden, and God help you. I don't care. I'll still be going after Trump, and it'll be even more difficult. All right, this show is supported, exists, survives, thrives even, because it's supported by listeners like you. I can only do it because of your contributions. Without your contributions, this show would shut down. No question about that. Some of you, don't contribute. You have an opportunity to if you're listening live through the Super Chat, but you can contribute on a monthly basis on yaronbrookshow.com/membership, or you can do it through Patreon, and you can do $2 a month. It doesn't have to be at the max level of $500. You can do a whole variety of levels of contribution. Every dollar helps and supports the show. So please consider using the Super Chat tonight to get us to our goal, which we have a goal for every one of these shows, which kind of represents the amount of money we need to make in order to keep the show going. All right. I need to do 2 movie reviews today. I still got a bunch more after this, and then I've got a bunch of song reviews as well. But we'll do 2 movie reviews today, and then I'll try to do the rest in the next few shows. Pig. Pig is a movie. Let me just 1 second. Pig is a movie with Nicolas Cage. It really is a vehicle for Nicolas Cage. He is at the center of a movie. He's in pretty much every shot of the movie, I think. It was a movie made in 2021. I think I saw it when it first came out. I saw it again because who asked me to watch Pig? Owen T asked me to watch Pig. So I watched Pig again. Adam Campbell doesn't like movie reviews. Sorry, but people pay me a lot of money to do these. And I did. It is right now in the title. So Pig is a very mixed movie. It's an interesting movie, but it's a very mixed movie. It's got some really positive aspects to it. The positive aspects are primarily intellectual. The positive aspects primarily have to do with the main character in the movie, the character played by Nicolas Cage's attitude, or his basic showing up, the second-handedness of almost everybody else in the movie. It's a very good movie about seeing how much of our culture is about how other people perceive you, what other people expect of you, what other people demand of you. It's very much a movie against this kind of attitude of second-handedness, of, and it's, for example, a restaurant that is showy and, quote, sophisticated. The food is bland, is not really very good. And Nicolas Cage's point is that the chef is not really making the food he wants to make. The chef's real dream is to have a pub, and have pub food. And he's here making this, pseudo sophisticated stuff. And you can see character after character after character that the Nicolas Cage interacts with is filled with second-handed premises that are laid bare by Nicolas Cage. The problem is, what's the alternative? Because the alternative as presented in the movie is Nicolas Cage, who is in a sense first-handed. He does what he wants. He pursues his passion. He pursues his life his way. He doesn't give a damn about anybody else and what they think about him. But what kind of life is that? It's a life, in this case, for Cage, of isolation, of living in poverty with nothing. It's showing up, and the entire movie, basically, Nicolas Cage is filthy, bloodied. He's been in a couple of fights. Bloodied, stinks, horrible clothes. And he's walking around, entering people's homes, entering restaurants, entering all in the state. And at the end of the movie, he basically returns to where he started, a wooden shack in the middle of the woods outside of Oregon, outside of Portland somewhere in Oregon. The pig in question is a pig that helps him fight truffles. It's really, this is a good Jonathan Hoening movie, because it's really about his love of his pet and his pursuit of his pet. In that sense, it's the one value that he has, that he pursues. But he has no friends. He has no love, except for the pig. He has nothing. Anyway, the pig is stolen from him. And the movie is him trying to figure out who stole this truffles finding pig. And, you know, so the movie's, it's pretty bleak because it offers no alternative to the second-handedness other than living alone, living in destitute, but on his own terms. So, very mixed. And you can't, it's not enjoyable because, I mean, Nicolas Cage does a good acting job, but it's not enjoyable primarily because the whole movie, you're seeing a homeless looking, and you can just imagine how badly he smells, filthy, disheveled guy walking around. And he might say some decent things, but it's just an unpleasant visual experience. It's an unpleasant aesthetic experience. So in spite of some good philosophical elements in it, because it offers no alternative, or the alternative it offers is so oppressive, I can't really recommend it. Okay, very different in every single aspect is a movie called Weathering with You. Weathering with You is an anime film. You know, anime is growing on me. What can I say? It's definitely a style of cinema that is more appropriate for children and more appropriate for young people, I think. But it has certain elements of children movies. It's animated, but it's animated. Even its animation is geared, I think, to more children. But the story is, again, it's very inspiring. It's beautifully drawn. The characters are really good. They're independent. They're strong. They're strong-willed. They know what they want. They pursue values. And at the end of the day, the theme of the movie is anti-sacrifice, particularly anti-human sacrifice. I mean, there's this, and it's even willing to say at the end of the day, and this is kind of an anti-climate change theme, if you will. So Tokyo is experiencing this bizarre weather. It doesn't stop raining. It's just raining all the time. It's flooding. It's raining. And this girl has this power to bring out the sun. And she can for short periods of time. And she sells that skill. People pay her for her to bring out the sun. She makes a little bit of a living doing that. And but it's the case that to really bring back good weather, she would have to die. She would have to die. She would have to be sacrificed. And she does. She sacrifices herself. And the weather improves dramatically. But the boy who loves her, and there are going to be spoilers here, the boy who loves her won't let that happen. And he goes, in a sense, like a Greek tragedy, to the underworld, and he brings her back. But when she comes back, the weather gets bad again. And at the end of the movie, basically, Tokyo is completely flooded and unlivable. And it's a happy ending. So just for that, it gets 2 thumbs up. For saying, you know what? The weather be what it be. We're not giving up our values. We're not giving up civilization. We're not giving up love. We're not giving up love. We're going to be selfish. We're not going to give up. And the movie really ends on this really selfish note. We're going to live our lives. We're going to pursue our love. We're going to pursue our relationship. We're going to pursue life. We're not going to give in to having to sacrifice all that for good weather. And, like most anime that I've seen so far, it's got beautiful music and the animation is pretty. And yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it. So gets a thumbs up there. And I think, again, philosophically, it comes together and it's quite a good theme. Don't sacrifice your life. Live it. Even if the outcome for a lot of people is not good. Maybe this is a movie Greta should watch. Because I think Greta's ready. If Greta tomorrow would sacrifice herself, and all of us, of course, she'd sacrifice all of us with her for the so-called planet. All right, so yes, weathering with you. Didn't expect it to like it, and kind of slow in the beginning, but yeah, good characters, good story, kind of fun. All right, let's see. Let's go to your questions, and a reminder again that I depend on you guys to meet our goals so that we can keep this show going. All right. Wes suggested weathering. Wes Stewart suggested weathering. So thank you, Wes. Good suggestion. Wes says, glad you enjoyed weathering with you. I thought you would. The unabashed selfishness at the end of the movie was very refreshing and surprising. Absolutely. And yeah, very cool. So highly, I recommend you guys watch it. Let me know what you think. Liam says, I like your show. I like that your show is less uptight and academic than ARI. It's more lively and relatable to the common man. Good. Yeah, I think that's right. Andrew, most egoists I know have an edge to their personality, but Trump's edge is this ever-present hostility towards others and the world. How would you differentiate a healthy fighting spirit with that of Trump exhibits? I mean, Trump is not an egoist, and Trump is not a man of self-esteem. Trump is a narcissist. Trump is completely obsessed with what people think of him, what people think about him. You could even imagine that he believes he didn't lose the election, because he can't imagine, and it would be too upsetting for him to imagine that that a majority of Americans don't like him. So he is a complete narcissist, not an egoist. And he has very thin skin. That's how you know somebody does not have self-esteem, is when they have very thin skin. They immediately go for insults. They immediately attack. And they can't take any criticism. They can't take any kind of really interaction that's negative. And I think the difference is that people with true self-esteem don't view other people as a threat. They view other people as a potential benefit. They don't think that everything in life is a deal they have to win, right? I mean, this is the difference between trade and the kind of deal Trump believes in. Trump believes that everything is win-lose. Everything is win-lose. That if the other party wins, you must have lost. And if you win, they must have lost. So that everything, his whole perspective on trade, his whole perspective on international trade, on tariffs, his whole perspective on human relationships is, I must win, and therefore I must dominate you. I must dominate you. And that's his whole perspective. I mean, he said this explicitly. I mean, the problem is that, again, the mindless Trump supporters don't actually listen to what he says and don't actually, pay attention and think about what he says. They, in a sense, take him literally, but they don't think it through. But he's often said that he believes trade is win-lose. So Yeah, so Trump has, he doesn't have a healthy fighting spirit. He has the fighting spirit of a thug, of somebody who believes that he must thrash his enemies, otherwise, he's not a man. Then he must dominate others. Trump is domineering, and again, somebody who lashes out and views other people as threats, not as allies. So very malevolent. And I think that's a big difference. A successful, healthy fighting spirit, it knows what it's fighting for. What is Trump fighting for? His self-image. That's the best you can get. And he does nothing. His counter punches insults, but he does nothing to actually fight. He just lashes out. And again, that's not a fighting spirit. That's a sign of low self-esteem and of a constant desire to appease and to appeal. And at the end of the day, he's not a fighter. He doesn't stand up to anybody. He didn't stand up to Putin. Didn't stand up to the brutal dictator of North Korea. He didn't stand up to anybody. Didn't stand up to Xi. Loved Xi. Didn't stand up to a single world leader. Didn't stand up to Democrats. I mean, in actual, real reality, he didn't stand up to Democrats. Gave them pretty much everything they wanted. Adam, love the Trump comments. I used the example of applying his national programs to a neighborhood to show their absurdity. Build a wall. Tariffs made in my neighborhood. Anti-trade and anti-immigration makes us poorer. Useless unless you are unproductive. Yeah, that's right. The unproductive love it. The retired, indeed, love it. The people who live off of the state, Medicare, Social Security, love the anti-immigration, anti-trade. But if you actually want to be productive, if you actually want to live out there in the world and compete and be the best that you can be, you want the competition. And, and you want the challenge. All right. Michael says, if Trump wins again, I can see him turning the GOP against Israel, against free markets, just a monumental disaster. Yeah, but I think the GOP is already against free markets, a significant portion of it. The J.D. Vance and the Josh Hawley wing of it. They're already, ready to be anti-Israel. It's just a matter of the right push, and I think that what's his name, his son-in-law won't be around to pull him back towards Israel. But yeah, the Republican Party, I told you 7-8 years ago, was lost. It was finished because it had chosen Trump. It had given up on any respect for free markets. It had given up on a serious foreign policy, and with Trump winning, that would completely demolish whatever was left of the Republican Party, and then we'd be stuck with a Democratic Party, and that's it. A Democratic Party and a Nationalist Party, and that's all you would have. And that is Trump's doing, and why I said in 2016, he will destroy the Republican Party, and in that sense, he's more dangerous than Hillary, he's more dangerous than Biden, because he would actually destroy the only opposition party that exists. So I agree, Michael. I think he destroys the Republican Party. I think to a large extent he already has. James says, I wouldn't call DeSantis a fascist like I would Trump. I think DeSantis knows better. He's just being pulled by certain fascist political advisors. His economic policies in Florida have not been statist. I think that's right. I think DeSantis has shifted to the fascist side of the Republican Party because he knows that's the only way he can win, because that's where Donald Trump has moved the Republican Party to. And DeSantis knows that the only way he can win is to capitalize on that. So he wanted to out-woke Trump. He wanted to attack the left of Trump. The problem is that what people get from Trump is not anti-woke. What people get from Trump is not the anti-this or being further to the right. DeSantis is also tougher on abortion than anybody else in the race, right? That's not what they get from Trump. And that's what DeSantis doesn't understand. What they get from Trump is, don't be afraid, I've got your back. And it doesn't matter if you have their back or not, but that's the sentiment, that's the emotion they get from Trump. Don't be afraid, I've got your back, and it's okay to be angry, I'm angry too. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. Don't worry. What they get from Trump is what you get from an authoritarian. It's a certain comfort. It's not answers. If you ask Trump supporters, what is Trump going to do? What do you predict Trump will actually do? What are his policies? They have no clue. And on every policy, I think they're more aligned with DeSantis than they are with Trump. But that's exactly not what they get from Trump. What they get from Trump is the angry, I am going to fix things for you, trust me. And he manages to do that. He is brilliant at the marketing, the manipulation, the projection, the pretense of self-esteem, if you will, the pretense of confidence. All right. Liam says, Vivek's out there campaigning for Trump in New Hampshire. Just disgusting. The guy makes me sick. Vivek is smart enough to know better, and he had the potential to be better, but he chose to be the ultimate second-hander. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. I mean, Vivek struck me from the beginning as just making, just on a power trip, not really believing in the things he stood for. Vivek, who has some really good radical ideas, a lot of bad stuff, but good radical ideas, which would have been really useful within the Republican Party if they didn't come in a package that, embraced Donald Trump bad ideas at the same time. But it doesn't surprise me one bit that Vivek is out there with Donald Trump. Vivek, from the beginning, was courted and sucked up to Trump in every single way. I told you that from the beginning, Trump was going to win unless somebody was willing to stand up to him who was legit. Chris Christie never gave the impression he was running for president. He was never legit. DeSantis had a chance of winning this if DeSantis had taken the decision early on to go after Trump as a loser, go after Trump as not conservative enough. But what the American voters need is constant reminders of what Trump did during COVID. Constant reminders of the fact that Trump lost the House, lost the Senate, lost the House, lost the presidency, loser, and they never got that. So, and as I told you in the past, Ramaswamy will never be Trump's vice president. There's no way that happens either. So it's going to be, it'll be somewhat interesting to see who he picks. Not super interesting, but somewhat interesting. James, what do people get from being trolls, trying to fluster someone who actually takes life seriously? What do they get from being trolls? I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask them. I think they get a certain nihilistic pleasure in disrupting, the same pleasure the left gets in the right gets in burning stuff down or just being obnoxious for the sake of being obnoxious. They get that same thing of just being disruptive. They're also attention seekers. They want attention. They want to be noticed. They want to have a voice. They don't have it. And when they troll somebody who has a voice, they hope to latch on to the voice that he have. So I'd say attention seeking and a little bit of just the nihilistic joy of disruption, of pissing somebody off, of just getting under their skin. Can't think of any other reason for it. And think about the effort they go to. They listen to a show, they watch a show they don't like, a guy whose ideas they don't agree with. They, at best, they get me to respond and be angry at them, but they get their attention. I'm feeding them when they do that, right? They say feeding the trolls for a reason. And they're not interested in ideas, they're not interested in philosophy, they're not interested in truth. They're interested in mouthing off. They're interested in attention. They've got a certain kind of narcissistic thing going on. Anyway, pathetic, I think, as Stephen Pettit puts it. But real, you can see it live every show I do. How far can racists and anti-Semites really get in the world today, other than leaving nasty anonymous comments online? You can get pretty far in circles of the far left. You get pretty far in the far left. You can head up institutions. You can be a professor. You can you can become a member of Congress. And you can get, I think, pretty far on the far right. Just the far left has more enticing positions for you, in a sense that they dominate the intellectual kind of cultural high ground. The far right has nothing for you, really. But that can all change very quickly. Very quickly. I mean, anti-Semites in history have gone from being nothing to being significant movers and shakers. And as this country and the Western world descends into, I don't know what it's descending into, but into a kind of an anarchy and into violence, political violence potentially descends into maybe authoritarianism, then I wouldn't be surprised if anti-Semitism gets rewarded by a new regime. But we're definitely heading towards more authoritarianism. We're definitely heading towards more greater power to our politicians. I mean, to some extent, we already have authoritarianism. It's just a matter of degree. But we're heading towards more, and we're heading towards less of even the vestiges of liberty and freedom. That's the. I don't see how we get out of it at this point. I don't see where it comes from. I think it's much worse now than the 70s, not in the sense of violence, not in a sense of economics, but I think in a sense of culture. I think the culture is more horrible, more anti-conceptual than it was in the 70s. And I just don't see the momentum shifting like it did in the 1980s. Maybe it will, but I don't see where it comes from. I don't see where it comes from. I mean, you could turn this around pretty quickly because the foundation is still there. The economy is still basically pretty good. The entrepreneurial spirit is still pretty much there. But America's still the mightiest country in the world. But people want to vote for Trump, and people want to support Hamas, and millions of people watch Tucker Carlson, and that suggests to me that something really, really dark is going on. And I don't see how the more positive forces in the world, and there are a lot of them. I mean, there's more business creation in America right now than ever. There are more businesses being created right now than ever. That's great. Americans are still entrepreneurial. But I don't know how you get from there to turning this country around, given the hostility people have towards one another, and given their love of people like Trump. Trump is a really, really, really bad cultural indicator. Really is. And you know, I'm a huge fan of artificial intelligence and biotech, and what that could bring to the world, in my view, is unbelievable. I mean, the future could be, with not that, you know, with some tweaks, the future could be stunning and amazing. I mean, the remnants of the Enlightenment, going down, kicking and screaming, are creating immense beauty, immense wealth, unbelievable technology. And we have no appreciation for it. It's, you know, how can it be in a year where we'll get GPT-5, we're just going to get stunning technology, just stunning technology, and where you know, we are very close to cures for major diseases, and just there's going to be massive innovation this year. We might be extending human life, who knows until when. In that same country that all of that is happening, and in the same year that all of that is happening, somebody like Donald Trump could get elected president. I mean, that dichotomy is just stunning. And one of the things that conservatives and right-wingers are going to have to resolve is, how come the people actually pushing the envelope? How come the people really changing the world? How come the people really making the world a better place to live are not on their side? Why is it that the biotech community and the tech community and the AI community are not on the side of Donald Trump, and they're not on the side of the Republican Party? How come? Because isn't at the end of the day AI more important than who's president? Isn't AI a difference maker, bigger difference maker than the difference between Trump and Biden? So wouldn't you want more of that? And if you want more of that, don't you want to be able to communicate with the people who do it, create it, make it? You would think. Michael says, thanks for the analysis, and I agree. Trump's support largely comes from Christians, pragmatists, and nihilists. Hence the mindlessness, irrationalism, and authoritarianism, fear, and force. Yes, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I didn't even mention Christianity, but you're absolutely right. Christianity is a huge force here, right? It's no accident that the evangelicals love Trump, because the evangelicals, by their commitment to their religion, are committed to an epistemology of authoritarianism. They're committed to an epistemology of obedience. They're committed to an epistemology of anger and fear and doing what they're told. And so it's not an accident that evangelicals of all the different types of Christians, the most emotionalist of the Christians, are going to support Trump. He plays to emotions, fear and anger primarily. And he does that well. And so I'd say old Christian pragmatists and nihilists. The nihilists are probably younger. The Christian pragmatists are probably older. And the question is, can Trump win a general election on that basis? And I still think the answer is no. I could be wrong. Hope I'm not. But because I hope he loses. And actually, this time, just like last time, my hopes did not come true. Last time I said in 2020 that I really, 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 really hope that he loses big. And he didn't. He lost small, and he lied. I don't think he can get away with a lie a second time, although who knows. but it would be much easier if he just lost big. I think it's really, really, really important that Trump lose big. And then I was also hoping last time that and I was convinced it would happen, that the Republicans would maintain the Senate. But of course, Trump is such a loser that he lost in the Senate in 2020 as well. You forget Georgia and how he lost Georgia for them. And they couldn't retake it in 2022, which was an ideal year for them to retake the Senate. They still couldn't do it. Like they were going to capture 4 or 5 Senate seats. Couldn't do it because of Trump. And now is even more ideal. They really have a chance to retake the Senate this time. And who knows, because of Trump, they might lose it again, which will be an unbelievable streak of losses for somebody who claims to be a winner. Harper Campbell says, I'm starting to think life doesn't begin until 40. Until then, you're just doing research. I mean, there's a sense in which that's true. In Judaism, there's that belief that until 40, you're supposed to study and you only start living at 40. I mean, you should live every year of your life. Every year should be a life well lived. But yes, a lot of your life you're learning. A lot of your life you're learning. It's not like even at 40, you stop learning. Clark says, do you think objectivists try too hard to find the good on the right when in reality they're largely theocratic, anti-intellectual, racist, blue-collar thugs? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think objectivists try too hard to find good on the right. Yes. Because we all reject the left. And then we're kind of lonely if we reject the right too. So a lot of people who embrace objectivists don't want to be lonely. They want to have a team. They want to have a team they can root for. They want to have somebody they can support. They want to belong to a group. They're a little second-handed, and part of that is they want to. They're willing to forgive the right pretty much anything. But yes, there's a big segment of the right which is theocratic, anti-intellectual, racist, blue-collar thugs. There's no question that a significant number of them are, and many of them are not thugs. They're just mindless or emotionalist or lots of other terms other than thugs. But yeah, I mean, you can watch these people. I mean, I've talked to many of them over the years. I mean, real Trumpists, not kind of the so-called objectivist Trumpists. And they're truly mindless. I mean, nothing you can say makes any difference. You can't reach them. You can't. There's a real barrier there. It's just it's like the people on the left. You can talk to them about the science of climate change. You can talk about fossil fuel. You can talk about the benefits of fossil fuel. It doesn't reach them. They're not. They won't accept any kind of logical, factual-based argument. And the same is on the right. Exactly the same. You get exactly the same response. In that sense, it's not that big of a difference. Michael says, Trump's ascendance shows we have lost the war to save the mind. I think that's right. I think we have lost. For now. That Doodle Bunny, why is Iran the only country in the world where selling your own organs is legal? And would selling a kidney to put a down payment on a home be moral? I don't know why Iran is the only country where it's legal. I didn't know it was legal in Iran. It should be legal everywhere. Is it moral to sell a kidney to put a down payment on a house? It could be. It depends on the circumstances. It depends how well you're going to take care of the second kidney. It depends on your alternatives. It depends on how important it is to you to buy a home. I'm not a big believer that everybody should own a home. You could rent. So why are you not renting? So you'd have to answer a lot of questions. The bottom line is that which is moral is rational. You'd have to look at the complete context and all the facts and determine whether it's rational for you to sell a kidney in order to put a down payment. And that very much depends on your circumstances and on the facts surrounding the case. Michael says, does free speech apply during wartime in Israel? Many Arab Israelis who are posting pro-Hamas messages on their social media are being arrested. Is that a rights violation? It certainly can be. That is, if it's clear-cut and there's a war and you are supporting the enemy, then yes, that is illegal to support the enemy in a time of war. If you were promoting Nazi propaganda during World War II, you would be arrested. And I believe that if we had properly declared war after 9/11, then war after 9/11, properly declared the enemy, properly declared the war through a Congress passing a declaration of war on those that promote, those that act on Islamism and Islamic totalitarianism, then those preachers and those advocates of Islamic totalitarianism and Islamism in the United States could have been arrested. And mosques could have been prevented from building, and a lot of things could have been done once you identify the enemy, declare war, and define clearly what is now illegal. Supporting the enemy is illegal. It's completely legitimate. By the way, the real question in Israel would be, are Jews who are posting pro-Hamas messages also being arrested? And I don't know the answer to that. But I hope the answer is yes. That is, I hope they're not discriminating based on the ethnic or religious origins of the person, but based on their support of the enemy. Michael says, you notice a lot of people think being nasty and inconsiderate are signs of strength and assertiveness. Does this come from a zero-sum view of human interaction, of social interaction? Yes, and it comes from a malevolence, a fundamental malevolence about life. That you're going to get screwed unless you screw somebody else. But yes, fundamentally, it's zero-sum, malevolent view of the world, and therefore, strength is reflected in willingness to screw other people. But that's a wrong view of life, and a self-destructive view of life, and a view of life that's destructive to your own self-esteem. All right, we've got a lot of Super Chat questions. To make our goal, it would be great if the Super Chat questions from now on were $20 and above. So $20 and above Super Chat questions. We just need like 6 of them, and we'll reach our target. All right, the Doodle Bunny says, if a man's mind is right, his world will be right. Well, not necessarily. I mean, we're not primacy of consciousness. We don't believe that the world is shaped by your mind. Your mind is a tool to comprehend the world. The world is shaped by the world, by what happens out there in reality. But you can have a good mind, and a hurricane can blow you away. So, or terrorists can blow you up. So the world is not right if just your mind is right. You don't shape the world. You observe and understand the world, and can change it within the scope of what you can change. Ian says, if Trump wins in 2024, could the new Congress impeach him for January 6, 2021? Back then, Republicans said they wouldn't impeach him because he wasn't president anymore. I don't know if they could, but they won't. I mean, let's be frank. I mean, Republicans had this golden opportunity in January 2021 to make sure that Trump would never run again. And I think some of them made a strategic mistake. I think some of them who didn't want him to run again thought, well, after January 6th, there's no way he would ever do this. The Republicans would never accept him. And that was, of course, a mistake. I didn't even think about this. I did a whole thing about Trump and never even mentioned January 6th. The lie of the stolen election and the conspiring to basically overturn a vote, which is clearly what he did. It's what he told Pence to do. I mean, he clearly was responsible for an insurgency in spirit, if not in practicality, because they were not very competent. But he clearly inspired. And just what he told Pence to do, and argued for Pence to do it. should be impeachable and he should never be president again. I mean, that everything that happened post 2020 election, never mind COVID, never mind everything else, should be enough to ban him from running, never mind, to vote for him. How can anybody vote for this guy? It's mind-boggling to me. This is a guy who lost an election and then did everything in his power to keep control over the government. He should not be anywhere near the White House. He should not be even running in the primary. It should be, the idea of Donald Trump running should be so ludicrous, he would never even consider it. That's how, awful a state our culture's in, that we even allow him to run. All right, Michael says, January 6th was the culmination of all the irrational forces at play. Trump's arbitrary claims, rejection of the rule of law, use of force. Absolutely. If Americans still vote for him after that, it is suicide, and because it requires so much evasion. Yes, and I really do think, I'll state it now, and I think I'll hold this till election day. You cannot vote for Trump, even if the alternative is Biden. You cannot vote for Trump. There's no way, there's not enough money, there are no circumstances under which I would vote for Trump. It's just unthinkable. After everything he did while president, during COVID, and then leaving. And then, at post-election of 2020. It's just the sheer irrationality, the sheer rejection of the rule of law, the sheer rejection of the American system of government, and the evasion, and the demand that everybody around him evade. I mean, one of the striking things about Trump, one of the striking things about his administration, is the number of good people he appointed to different roles, who then left just completely disillusioned. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, a lot of administrations have turnover, but never have I seen turnover with such disillusionment. I mean, and good people, General Mathis, Bolton on foreign policy, but even to the end, think about Barr, who Trump hailed as the ultimate in the Justice Department. Think about Cohen, who is his economic advisor. Time and time again, the really good people who spent a year or two there and had a run. And I'm not a big fan of Barr, but I mean, he had the guts to stand up to Trump at the end, and which nobody today has. They're all voting for it. Kudlow stuck with Trump to the end. Kudlow deserves contempt for that. Sorry. But there were a bunch of them. There was the other general who was his national security advisor, or his chief of staff, Kelly. And there were a bunch of them. There were a bunch of really good people, particularly the military. I mean, they're not ideal from my perspective, but they're good people. And they all ran from Trump. And of course, as soon as they ran from Trump, they were condemned by MAGA, by the Republican Party, and by the whatever. They were written off. They were horrible people. They were the worst. They were, people like Bolton, who were admired and respected in the Republican world among the activists, among the politicos, among everybody. As soon as he rejected Trump, was trashed, just trashed. It was absolutely disgusting. So, it's just impossible to vote for him, given what these relatively good people thought of him from an intimate, engagement with him, worked for him. All right, we've still got a bunch of questions and still need about $60 to make our numbers for the day. Can you see a scenario where Donald Trump wins the White House and Democrats take both the House and the Senate? Yeah. I think there's a good likelihood the Democrats recapture the House. The Senate is going to be hard for them, but not impossible. Not impossible. And again, Trump on the ticket, I think, makes it harder for Republicans to win. Harder for Republicans to win. Remember, they lost the House twice. Under his watch, and they lost the Senate twice with his candidates. So I definitely think it's possible. Stephen, do you think Trump has read any Ayn Rand? If not, if he did, would any of it get through, or does a philosophy of any kind just not get through his brain? Yeah, he claims to have read The Fountainhead. I doubt it, but he claims to have read The Fountainhead. I don't think he reads anything. But it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. A book like that would be completely misinterpreted by him to the extent that he comprehended any part of it. It would go in one ear, get out the other, and he would misinterpret it. He would think that he was like a Howard Roark type, when he's the exact opposite of Howard Roark. I think he would fool himself into that. Hopper Campbell, will you proudly vote for Biden if Trump is the nominee, or will you sit the election out? I mean, I'm going to sit it out because I'm in Puerto Rico, so I can't vote for president. If I was in the United States, it would be tough whether to vote for Biden or to sit it out. I'm not sure. But one thing is for sure, I would not vote for Trump. Hopper Campbell, why hasn't the system been able to put Trump in prison yet? Are they afraid? What happens if Trump wins the nomination and then has to serve 6 months in jail? I don't know what happens if he wins the nomination and has to sit in jail. I don't know how that works. I guess he could pardon himself, but I'm not sure if that works. It's complicated, and it would be a disaster. The system hasn't been able to put him in jail because these things take time. And because, at least among Republicans, there's a real political price to pay. I mean, he should have been impeached. The second time, he should have been impeached. There's no question about that. January 6th was an impeachable offense, and the Republicans are unbelievable cowards. And it's too bad we don't have even a slightly better Democratic Party that one could embrace just to punish them as thoroughly as they deserve to be punished. Ooh, Steven says, no question, I did send you an email on X for you to review. Thanks as always. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate it. Steven got us over our target. Really appreciate the support. All right, James says, is there any scenario where DeSantis becomes a nominee? I guess it could be. I mean, Trump could drop dead and it would be DeSantis versus Haley. I think in a direct matchup between DeSantis and Haley, I think DeSantis wins the Republican nomination because DeSantis gets more of Trump's votes than Haley does. DeSantis will appeal to many of the Trump voters where she does not. So yeah, I think if Trump somehow drops dead, has a stroke, put in jail, and there's still votes to be had, then I think DeSantis beats Nikki Haley and becomes the nominee. Daniel, you think Biden will drop out? The thought of a Trump second term gives me hibby-jibbies. No, I just don't see it. There are voices within the Democratic Party urging him to do so. I think yesterday, Bill Ackman, the guy who we've talked about quite a bit on the News Roundup shows, Bill Ackman has come out for Biden to step aside and is actually supporting the one Democratic congressman running against Biden, Dean something. And I guess he did, this Democrat did a show on X with Elon Musk and Bill Ackman, and Bill is supporting this guy. So there's some money and there's some voices calling on Biden to withdraw. I just don't see it happening. I don't think he does it. Spyman says, the only Republican worth voting for is Haley. DeSantis is an open fascist. The proper role of government is protecting children. Sickening. Yeah, I mean, I agree, although the government does have some role with children, in protecting children for certain things, but not the things that DeSantis wants to protect them from. I'm much more supportive of Haley than I am of DeSantis, but I'm mainly anti. Will Dr. Pivov be endorsing Trump again this time around? I can't believe it. I don't know. And look, I don't know that Leonard said he was voting for Trump. Is that an endorsement? I don't know what kind of an endorsement it is. It's hard to tell what Leonard Peikoff will do. But it wouldn't shock me. Michael says, DeSantis has been fantastic on Israel. Good. I thought Haley was much better than him on Israel, but maybe DeSantis has been good too. Jonathan, Carter deregulated much more than Trump and didn't start a riot on the Capitol either. Absolutely. I mean, Jimmy Carter, of all people, was one of the main deregulators of the late 20th century. I mean, really major pieces of legislation. It really started under the Ford with the deregulation of brokerage fees. But Jimmy Carter did trucking and airlines and I think railroads and a bunch of other stuff. It was quite dramatic. I wish we had anybody who thought that way today. Stephen Pettit says, keep it going. Thank you, Stephen. Alec, keep up these reviews of movies and books. I cannot choose books and movies blindly anymore and depend on this kind of review. Thank you, Alec. Will do. As long as you guys pay me, I'll keep doing them. And once in a while, I'll recommend some stuff, even when you don't pay me. Some stuff that's good. Eric, English or Japanese for weathering with you? English. The Japanese was weird. I mean, there were multiple versions on, I think it was Max, and the only version that worked decently was the English version. And the English was fine. The English was really fine. I didn't really, usually dubbing bugs me, but this didn't bug me at all. Michael says, can you comment on Trump arising from discontent of elites on disastrous Bush and Obama policy, which in turn has roots in Reagan embracing Christian conservatives? Today's event playing out from era of the 1980s. Michael, I think that's absolutely right. I think Trump is only possible because of the political power what was the moral majority has today in America. Trump is the candidate of the evangelicals, and the evangelicals are Republicans. They weren't always Republicans. They were Democrats, and they've mostly been non-voters. They just sat out most elections in American history. Evangelicals sat out. But they've never really been Republicans until Ronald Reagan, until 1980. In 1976, they overwhelmingly voted for Jimmy Carter. That is the main, I'd say, older evangelicals, older conservatives, older Christians are the ones who vote for Trump, particularly in the primaries. And they turned against elites, and this is for a much longer show, in a sense, a history from the 80s till today of American politics. But they turned against elites during the Tea Party. And that was a good turn. It was a right turn. It was a turn towards the Constitution and the founders. And they elected Tea Party candidates. You know who one of those Tea Party candidates was? Nikki Haley. She was considered a Tea Party candidate in South Carolina and was considered one of the young, up-and-coming Tea Party candidates who promised Constitution, capitalism, freedom, limited government, decreasing government spending, and all the good stuff. And then what happened is that they lost. In spite of voting for Tea Party candidates in 2010 in the congressional elections, and in 2012 congressional elections, both won by Republicans, they lost the presidency to Obama, and these Tea Party candidates couldn't stop Obama from doing Obamacare and couldn't basically stop the leftward lurch of American culture and of economics. And they hated Obama. I mean, they despised Obama. And when Romney, who was not a Tea Party candidate, they were very disappointed that Romney was the candidate, as were many of us. But when Romney lost to Obama, they were crushed. The Tea Party was basically crushed. And it became depressed. And they were looking for a savior. And in a sense, they gave up on the Tea Party principles. They gave up on the ideas of limited government. They just wanted somebody to address their frustration, to address their anger and their fear. And they were looking for a Messiah, and they got one. And some of Trump's most strongest supporters are convinced God has chosen him for this task. They're religious fanatics, and they take it all the way. Remember all the conspiracy theorists? They haven't gone away. The QAnon and all of that, it's still around. And they're all growing and powerful. And, the religious fanaticism of Michael Flynn, who was the first guy Trump appointed as national security advisor, is a religious fanatic traveling around the churches and engaging in just bizarre mystical behaviors. And this is all connected to the embrace of the moral majority in the 1980s, and really all connected to a general intellectual decline in America, where the elites, right and left, have given up on reason, given up on individualism. And what's left when you give up on reason and individualism? Collectivism and emotionalism. And that's the world in which we live. We live in a world right now where the dominant political ideologies on all sides, left and right, are collectivist, anti-intellectual, emotionalist. And that's what unifies them. Left and right, they're all the same in that sense. They're all about emotions, and they're all about the group, the tribe. And they're all about mindlessness, which is giving up on reason. That's what it means. So yeah, we're paying the price for Ronald Reagan's victory in 1980, bringing in the moral majority into the Republican Party. And this is what Ayn Rand foresaw. Frank, in fiction class, I never heard a teacher mention first-hand and second-handed ideas with characters. Should writers improve their work by learning this? Yeah, but you're not going to learn it in fiction class, because the whole idea of first-handed, second-handed is an Ayn Rand idea. The whole idea of social metaphysics, of orientation towards the other, and using that in writing or thinking about it in the context of writing, that is Ayn Rand. So unless Ayn Rand has much bigger influence on the culture, that idea is just not going to be there. Michael Fusco, rather than reject bad ideas and offer better ideas, the Trump movement rejects ideas as such. Mindlessness. Good way of putting it. The Trump movement is a rejection of ideas as such. Yes. Apollo Zeus. Are there any? Let me just say something. I have to say I'm pretty encouraged by you guys. Now we'll see what the people not listening live think and how many subscribers I lose. But the reality is that if I'd done, and I did, when I did shows like this in 2016, running up to that election, the chat was a lot more pro-Trump than it is right now. It is really heartening to see how many of you are anti-Trump and Yaron Brook show fans. How many of you participate in the chat on anti-Trump? How many of you are committed to capitalism and anti-Trump? That wasn't the case in the first round. It wasn't the case in 2020. So my audience has gotten better. You guys have gotten better. And that's good. That's a good thing. Apollo Zeus. Are there any libertarian politicians of hope for the future in lieu of an objectivist? Nobody I can see. Nobody I know. Haven't seen anybody stand out. Dean, thank you for all your great content. You're the best. Thank you, Dean. Really appreciate it. I mean, it is possible that all my oppositions just left. Nobody was convinced, and that's fine. That's fine. They left, but the fact is we're bigger today and more anti-Trump today. So both things happen at the same time. Apollo Zeus, I just looked up why the Celtics court is less modern than the other teams. I asked this question before. Sorry if I caused offense before. No, I'm curious now. You looked it up and you're not telling me why. Have you thought about selling merchandise from your YouTube show, another source of income? I keep thinking about it. I just haven't got organized around doing it. Action Jackson was supposed to set up a store for me on YouTube and sell T-shirts and stuff, and mugs and things like that, and it's never really happened. So I just don't have the time to do all that. So somebody has to take it upon himself to do it and get it done. We'll see. Hopefully one day. I'm looking for more sources of revenue. Steven says, what are the essential differences between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan? My father believed one is polished, the other is not, and that's all. No. Reagan had this amazing positive sense of life. Reagan was a benevolent person who believed strongly in the benefits of trade. He believed strongly in the strength of America. He really understood. I think pretty deep, and if you follow Reagan's career, you can see this. He really understood the value of freedom and the value of strength and the evil of authoritarianism and the evil of the communists in this case. I think Donald Trump doesn't understand any of that. It's irrelevant to that. He doesn't care one way or the other. Reagan was an intellectual giant compared to Donald Trump. So it's not an issue of one can speak and one cannot. I mean, go and watch Reagan's 1964 speech at the Republican National Convention, or his 1964 speeches in defense of Goldwater, where Ronald Reagan talks about a big part of the speech is his attack on Medicare and his rejection of Medicare. And it's just, not only is the rhetoric really good, but there are actual ideas there. He's actually advocating for a positive position, for something good. He actually argues for it. Trump has none of those qualities. None. I mean, the big thing about Reagan, because there's a lot of good stuff for him in '64, and when he was governor of California, he was pretty good. He, in 1976, and then suddenly in 1980, sold his soul to the religious right. But other than that, I mean, that's a big deal. But other than that, he was a giant as compared to anybody running today. And the comparison with Trump is just ludicrous. Trump is a babbling idiot. Reagan was a genius in comparison. Reagan had principles, had ideas, believed in something. When he said America, he had a certain sense of what that means. But Trump had none of that. Trump had none of that, has none of that. All right, guys, 2 hours on the minute. Thank you to all the super chatters. You guys were great. Thanks for all the questions. It's great to have a group of subscribers and followers like you, both in terms of support and in terms of just who you guys are, the kind of questions you ask and the support you show. So thank you. A reminder, I will be in Michigan. How did I forget this? Next week, I'll be in Michigan, University of Michigan on Tuesday night. Northwood University on Wednesday night. Information on both those events is up on my website yaronbrookshow.com. Also, on Friday, I will be in Texas for Austin, University of Texas in Austin, for a major speech on Israel. We will see who shows up. It'll be really interesting. Anyway, I'm hoping for a big turnout. I really, 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 I'm not begging, but I'm asking, really, really, for you guys to come. I need, it would be great to have a lot of support. It would be good to show moral support. It would be good if the left, if some of the demonstrators show up. It'd be good that we have a mass against them. It is Austin, Texas. It is the University of Texas. So it's a university in America today. So please come to the talk if you're in Austin or if you're in Texas somewhere, and show that support. Love to meet you and hang out with you and everything. And I promise to give a good talk. It'll be inspiring. It'll be emotional. It'll be ruthless. I will not hold back. People in the audience will be shocked. People who've never heard me before in Israel will be shocked by what I say. Even the Israelis in the audience will be all good. So, come. Gail, so please come. And that information of that wasn't on the website earlier today, will be by tomorrow, or might already be up there, but should be by tomorrow. Gail says, and I think she's absolutely right, and this is a good way to end, Ronald Reagan, with all his flaws and all his problems, Ronald Reagan loved America and had some understanding what it is. Trump does not. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Gail. I will see you all tomorrow for News Roundup. Hopefully, I'll see you in Michigan and Texas next week. Bye.